Wait, is this the reading room?
Yes, I'm Saad Manzoor.
And I'm Travis Howard.
This is Reading Room Talk. Thank you for pressing play. Welcome.
Welcome back, everyone.
Oh, yes. So we have, specialties that, we try to talk specialties that, people may not have heard of. But this is probably one of my favorite specialties right here. One of my favorite people, Mr. Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation himself. Mr. So Fresh and So Clean, actually. Dr. Alfy, Olufade. How are you today?
I'm good. How you doing, Sad? How you doing, Travis? Thanks for having me.
Doing well, man. Thanks for taking the time and getting us hip on PM&R.
PM&R, yeah. People always hear about PM&R. What is it? We're about to get into all of it today, man. So before we get there, though, man, take us back to medical school. Where'd you go to medical school, by the way?
See, I went to Robert Wood Johnson Medical School in New Jersey.
Oh yeah. So tell us. So take us back there. So what would you say was your toughest class or rotation in medical school?
Yeah, toughest class. I think it's got to be cardiology for me as well. I just really never digged it. I just really never liked it that much. I mean, I survived it. But cardiology was probably one of my harder ones, to be honest.
Oh, man, that's real.
What was it? The EKGs? Reading the
I think it was the EKGs. I think the EKGs started it, and I was just like, you know what, there's no turning around of this. I mean, interestingly enough, I still have to use it a little bit nowadays, but definitely not to the degree of what, initially when I knew nothing about it.
Yeah, there's definitely a steep learning curve, and I think it highly depends on who teaches it. As to, how tangible it is, and that goes like I think I've said that before, Saad, when we talk. It sometimes presentation is everything when you're learning something new. But interpreting EKGs was definitely not easy, and that could turn you off from cardiology. I feel like people either loved it and they are now cardiologists, or people are like, and they showed something else.
That's true.
Clearly, I was the latter.
No, you could definitely separate medical students into people who like cardiology and the ones that don't. So and the other thing about cardiology is it's like you have to know so much about all of the body. It's not just the heart. You'll be talking about the toes, the limbs, kidneys, the liver. It's all related to cardiology, and it was just like, man, that's a lot to know. So,
for sure.
Yeah, man. But it's all good, man. You made it through, man, and you're reading EKGs now. So I love it, man. So tell us about your background, man. So tell us about where your family's from and where you grew up, and all those things.
Right. So originally from Nigeria. Spent my first 14 years out there in Nigeria.
Nice.
The southern part is called Ogun State. A lot of people know Lagos. It's about an hour away from Lagos.
Okay.
So kind of, lived there for the first 14 years of my life, and came out here with my siblings, dad and mom. Like a lot of immigrant stories, what do you know in the United States? My aunt was living in New Jersey, so kind of moved out to Irvington, New Jersey. It's couple of blocks, a couple of minutes away from Newark, also called Brick City.
No, I know Brick City.
So, came out here and
now how was that transition? You were 14, that's old.
Yeah.
Old. I'm sure you remember
interestingly enough though, as you guys might know, I actually finished high school at age 14 in Nigeria. And so we came out to this country and it was like, you're too young to be going to college. You can't go to college.
That's interesting.
Got demoted about 2 grades back to 10th grade. And I had to finish 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade all over again. Clearly, we got the wrong advice. I mean, there are other ways of going about that.
It's all good.
You could have gone to a community college and transferred, to a 4-year, finished up at a different college after community college. But it's all good.
Also, are your siblings older or younger than you then, or
So I have an older brother and 2 younger sisters, and interestingly enough, not planned, we all happen to be in healthcare, doing different things, but
very cool.
In general.
Dr. Olufade, tell me, why did your family decide to leave Nigeria?
Yeah, so my dad was a practicing physician in Nigeria, and my mom was a nurse, a registered nurse. So, I think they were doing okay. They were comfortable. I think about it. I think my dad was around this age when he actually moved out here. And so I can't even imagine somebody telling me to leave everything I have right now with my family and move and go start all over again. So just like most immigrant story, the idea is to kind of, do something to for the better of their kids, even though he had to leave everything that he had and my mom and the comfort level that they were in. So to do better for their kids.
But I imagine, here it is, your father's a physician and your mom is a nurse, and you said they were doing okay for themselves, but something still prompted them, something still, made them want to leave and come to the States. And man, big sacrifice, a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, it's not an easy decision.
Oh, yeah. And like you said, to imagine uprooting everyone and just taking that leap. Did they know did they have a network, a group of people here that they could connect with in New Jersey?
Yeah, so my aunt was out there in Jersey. I think she moved out here maybe about 8 or 10 years prior to that.
Okay.
So she was in Jersey and, came out here and, kind of made it work, And,
man, you put it together, man.
It wasn't easy, but, we made it work and, finished up high school out there. And, I didn't know any better. Speaking of guidance counselors and stuff like that, we didn't really have a good roadmap to kind of figure out what the next steps were going to be for us. So, we just knew about the 2 or 3 schools around the Jersey area. We knew about Montclair. We knew about Rutgers University. And that was it. And I didn't even think about applying to a lot of schools because I just didn't know any better.
Yeah,
and
that's interesting.
We didn't necessarily get that guidance that maybe we could have benefited from. So went to Rutgers, the Brunswick Piscataway campus, and majored in biology and sociology.
Was starting 10th grade, was that easy for you? After you graduated high school, what was 10th grade like in the States?
Yes,
it was rough. I mean, just name it. It's the cultural part.
Yeah.
Just several. Where do we start from? I mean,
very underrated, the cultural part. Like something that your parents don't understand. They're like, like you're like, yo, you throw me in like this really crazy social situation here.
Yep. No. I mean, so and that's the interesting part. We could talk about that dynamic real quick. So obviously they did the right thing, they did the best thing, and definitely no regrets about that. But putting a kid, a 13, 14-year-old in this climate, a completely different environment, I think that's something that maybe sometimes we don't talk enough about. Just some of the struggles that kids around that age will go through. But obviously,
that's true though. That's true because like I feel like you made it out, but I feel like some people coming from like immigrant families, sometimes the kids like they fall prey to like the streets basically. They just kind of like I'm gonna fit in this way. I'm not going to fit in a school way, So it's a lot of peer pressure to like try to fit in, and then sometimes it comes at the expense of education. So that's good that you stayed on the path.
I have several experiences of that path that I could we'll save that for another day. But you're right. I think I think people forget about that part, and I think thank God we're here today. But it was not easy those first couple of years for sure. You had to. It takes a little bit of getting used to.
No, that's good though, man. You put your head down though. You made it happen for yourself, man. That's good. That's really good. Now, did you chose biology and sociology? Did you know you wanted to be pre-med at that point, or did you just kind of just doing something?
So I mean, I think even though both my parents were in medicine, they were I think they were the atypical African parents. They didn't necessarily force me to do medicine.
Oh,
it was
really?
more like just Okay. It was more like just do that's why I said atypical. It's like just do what you enjoy. So they were supportive, but not for 1 second did they kind of necessarily push me that direction.
That's interesting. Okay,
I've kind of was that.
That's really cool. I mean, that's not normal.
Correct.
It's not normal. So that's good.
It's not. So I mean, so for me, science. I've always been a science guy. growing up in some households, you know, okay, is either you're engineer, you're a doctor, or lawyer type situation, right? So I knew law was not my thing because I was more of a science kind of guy. So we actually had a cousin, an uncle that was a physical therapist, came by the house.
Okay.
I was like, this guy does pretty well for himself. Like, I wonder what he does. And I think we could bring that up later on in terms of, you know, what you see is what you're going to become, right?
Yes, sir.
So, you know, I was like, this guy does pretty well for himself. What does he do? So he said physical therapy. And, you know, I like science. I thought about physical therapy. So I think that was the beginning of it. But when I kind of started going, you know, moving to college, and I still remember that day till today, I was just walking past the building of almost like a pre-med or science building at Rutgers, Piscataway. And I was like, why just not be a doctor? Why be a physical therapist? And literally just happened like that. And, you know.
That's good. That's really good.
Been trying to pursue it since then.
Oh, that's really good. So tell us about the transition. How, what did you do, any programs, or how did you get yourself ready to apply to medical school from undergrad?
100%. I think every time I talk about myself being in medical school or being a physician, I think I always have to mention a couple of names. Dr. Kamal Khan, who was a premier advisor at Rutgers. Dr. He'll come back to me in a second. Dr. Francine Asian is another one that kind of started some of that. I gotta remember that third name. She was extremely influential. It must be the age. It'll come back to me. They were extremely influential. You know, Dr. Khan was my. He actually was the director of a pre-med. It's called Access Med when I was there. And the whole idea is just recruit minority boys and girls, Black, Hispanic, that had interest. I mean, you know, we joke around about spring break. I didn't know what spring break was until after the first 3 years. No, actually, I'll take that back. I went to spring break my freshman year, but sophomore year and junior year, my spring break was studying for MCATs because we had MCATs tutorials during spring break.
That's tight. This is through the program, through the Access program.
Yeah, through Access Med. We had programs. We had tutors, like, you know, organic chemistry. I survived it. Was not in love with it. You know, we had tutors on a regular basis that kind of helped mold us. You know, there's definitely a lot of the different things that they kind of did at that school, just exposing us to what doctors like, exposing us to what we call biomedical career programs called BCE.
Oh, that's so good.
And those were like summer programs that I did every year just to get exposure to med school, take some classes, get some credits. I mean, it was a big infrastructure that was created back then that it's going through some struggles right now, but we're going to continue to support as much as we can.
Oh, that's great, man. Definitely. That's really sounds like good. It sets you up nicely to hit the ground running when you get to medical school. And then, and it sounds like, you know, you're giving back to that organization, giving back to that infrastructure now. And I was in a conversation once. You remember those people? You remember those programs that helped you get over the hump? And it's so important to give back to those places, to those people, so we can keep this thing going. So big ups to you for doing that.
And just acknowledging them, remembering them, it's super important, man. So we'll definitely shout them out. So now, did they have like a direct pipeline to Robert Wood Johnson, or how did that work out for you?
So they did. They did have a pipeline. So the idea is there were different phases. They have Access Med phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 is just being able to you get a conditional acceptance to a medical school, and phase 2 is after the conditional acceptance, you actually, you know, go through the rigors of the medical school year, and you officially medical student. So they had that pathway. But like I said, every single summer, you know, name it, I was like the OG of it. I did BCP phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, PSP. Name every single summer program at Rutgers Piscataway I was involved in.
Oh, that's dope. That's really nice. And when did you get like the conditional acceptance to medical school? This like after sophomore year, or like how did that work?
So usually it'll be your final year in college. So then you kind of it'll be a third year in college the year before. Then that final year you take a couple of classes at the medical school while in college as well.
Gotcha. Oh, that's not bad at all. So this was and this is what you did. It sounds like.
That is correct. That's what I did, and I have a couple of colleagues and buddies that did it, and we still go back and give talks and speeches and stuff like that. And jokes aside, Dr. Kamal Khan's still on my text. I still text him every other week or something when I get a chance to catch up. So we've kind of built that rapport, that brotherhood. And it's still going on after 2 decades.
Well, tell him we're gonna find him. We're gonna get him on the pod as well. We need to ask him some questions.
He actually will be an excellent person. It will be an excellent person to interview.
I love it, man. So that's tight, man. So, like, I guess when you started medical school, then now were there like a lot of minority students in school with you, like through the program, or like how would you describe the diversity at your medical school?
Right. So Dr. Janice Johnson was the name of the other lady who was extremely instrumental. I feel like, those days when I felt like, who believes in me again? She was one of those folks that just unconditional belief. So shout out to Dr. Janice Johnson.
You got to have someone believing in you, man. It makes it reality, man. That's so important, man. We try to shout out all of the, anyone who, just mentors and just gives positive, energy to someone. That's awesome, man. So,
right. So you asked about the transition from college to med school. Yeah, I think the program definitely allowed us to have some minority in the pipeline, but especially in this world of DEI, we all discuss. It's not so much about the number of minorities. It's about how do we retain them. It's about what are the other things that we're doing to keep them going. So I think we definitely had some numbers, but I also felt like maybe there were some things that we could have worked on a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, that's true, man. I mean, medicine is cool and it's doable. I think anyone who's listening, we just want to make sure that you guys know it's doable. It's a nice, thing to do with your life. It really is. It's you can do really well for yourself.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in that. The numbers at these medical schools. It's interesting now that there's all this, debate and talk about affirmative action up for legislation, where the people that are being treated in the community, the doctors, the folks at the hospitals, the physicians should match the demographic, and so we have to do better and make sure that people realize their dreams, not only get accepted in the medical school, and matriculate, but finish, and
absolutely.
Yeah, big shout out to those programs that assist and help that happen.
Yeah, and in general to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation itself, I think we talked about the MMEP and SHPEP programs that we did and I did was a lot of people those are all funded through Robert Wood Johnson. So big shout out, man. So tell us, man. So what specialties were you interested in when you were in medical school? Were you interested in definitely cardiology?
Yeah, I was about to say I know what it wasn't. I knew it wasn't cardiology. And so for me, people always say, and this for the listeners as well, I think there's 3 different types of people that go to medical school. I think you have the surgeons, you have the proceduralists, and you have the medicine people. I think I was not the medicine guy. I think I thought I was more of the surgical guy back then.
Yeah, you did.
And, from a surgical standpoint, orthopedics was what was appealing to me.
That's right.
So
all of us.
I like anatomy. I like sports medicine. It's perfect.
Exactly.
And I started taking that journey. And after doing about 3 different rotations, I realized I liked everything in orthopedics except for the OR.
Oh,
and
man.
That was kind of counterintuitive to what an orthopedic surgeon does, right? So,
right.
So at that point, I was like, okay, so what's the next step? And this was kind of late. I mean, I kind of did rotations third year of medical school thinking I was still doing that. But I think it was the latter part of third year and the beginning of latter part of third year. I was like, you know what? What else is there that's close to orthopedics that I could do that is not orthopedic surgery, since I don't want to be in the OR? And so the idea about sports medicine and primary care sports medicine came up. The different avenues to get into sports medicine. Obviously, you could go through orthopedic surgery. I didn't want to do that. You could go through family medicine. You could go through internal medicine. You could go through pediatrics and emergency
many different
medicine,
routes,
as well as physical medicine and rehabilitation. So I kind of thought it through, and for one reason or the other, I kind of eliminated the other four, and I felt like physical medicine and rehabilitation was the right avenue for me to pursue being a sports medicine physician.
Nice. Why didn't you like the OR?
I don't know. It just I don't know. I like the smell of the booby. I mean that I just like the smell.
You're the first person that I've ever heard say that. I love that.
I like the smell.
That's hilarious.
I can't put my hands on it.
You got to get used to that if you're going to be in the OR.
I enjoy the fracture management. I enjoy the cast. I enjoy the radiology. Shout out to the 2 radiologists I'm talking to.
Shout out.
I enjoyed everything else, reading films, adjustments, dislocation, relocation, all that stuff, but not being in the OR.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's tough. It's a tough realization to come to, but it's good that you did.
Absolutely, man. I think and having that, you knew your limitations.
Yeah, man.
It's not it. This is not it for me, and that's great. You got to do that.
For sure, man. Oh, dude, that's good. That's really good, man. So PM&R, like you just kind of went all in at that point, I guess, on it, or what happened?
Yeah. So, at that point, like, what is that? Plenty of money relaxation is what people used to call it a decade ago. And been in practice for about 10 years right now. There's one thing I want to be clear on. It's definitely not that. Let me be clear on that. It's not plenty of money relaxation. So
well, you're a hustler, man. That's what that is. You never tired, man. Never tired.
So it's like, what is this PM&R thing? Physical medicine and rehabilitation. So for some of the folks that don't know what that is, the physical medicine part is more of the sports medicine, the MSK, musculoskeletal medicine, as well as the pain management type stuff, interventional spine. So that's the physical medicine part. The rehabilitation part includes more traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, stroke patients, prosthetics and orthotics. So those are the 2 different, framework of physical medicine rehabilitation. But back to my statement earlier, right? So I knew I wasn't a surgeon. That I didn't want to be a surgeon. I knew I didn't want to be an hardcore medical person as well, too. So I think one of the things that was appealing for me about PM&R is it allowed me to be a proceduralist and be good about doing procedures as well.
Yeah.
So, after thinking about my love for procedures hands-on, my interest in sports medicine, my interest in anatomy, and sports medicine in general, that's one of the ways I felt like the physical medicine part, for sure, of the PM&R part was something that was for me.
Love it, man. That's so good. I mean, basically, you got all the things you love from ortho without the bovie.
Pretty much.
Good for you, man.
Was there someone on your path that really exposed and promoted you in this subspecialty?
Yeah, sorry for throwing out a lot of names, but I think it's very important to
give shout them all out.
They need their props.
Yeah, Dr. Larry Chu was one of the guys that I kind of rotated with. He was in Arbortown in the outskirts of Philadelphia, and I remember doing a rotation with him my 4th year, and I remember saying to myself, if I'm doing what this guy is doing in the next 5 to 10 years or in the future, I'll be fulfilled. I'll be content. And I feel like it needs to be more of the Dr. Larry Chu's out there. I think it was just more the way it took you as an individual. It cared about you. It gave you the attention. He's very smart, but he gave you that half an hour, 45 minutes each morning before he got started. What do you want to talk about? A little bit of the old school way of stuff. Ask me that question, not in a negative fashion, not in a way that makes me feel, down or small, but challenged me a little bit. So in as much as I enjoy the procedures he's doing, he shows me around, he showed me different things. He actually reminded me of the active learning components to medicine. I think he's one of the guys. Obviously, we also had a couple of guys, also Dr. Weinig, who was at Temple back then. I think from a PM&R standpoint, I think those two guys, I definitely saw them doing what they were doing. And I just said, you know what? I'll be satisfied and content if I do this in another, 10 years or so.
That's so, and I know we talked about this before, but that's so important, Alfy. Like, if you are exposed to someone who genuinely enjoys what they're doing, and you can see it, it's palpable, and then they show you respect while they're doing it, and their excitement is contagious. And
that's a done deal.
The flip side of that, if you think you love something and you work with somebody and you don't get along with them, or they seem miserable, it can also deter you from your dreams. So just keep that in mind.
That's so important. And sometimes, you choose personalities over specialties sometimes. Like if you feel like you're getting along with certain type of personality, and like most of the people that you interact with have this type of personality, you're going to choose the field, So that's awesome, man. That's great, man. And it's good that you're like shouting all these people out, man, because on these journeys, man, there's a lot of help. There's a lot of help. So
there's something another thing that I know for sure. I didn't do this all by myself. So I think we got to give kudos to the folks that helped us here. And
for sure.
I think it's important to continue to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man.
I was going to ask, tell us who the organizations you work with now and what you love about what you do currently.
Yes.
Right. So during my fellowship year, I had the opportunity to work with Philadelphia Union. Shout out to Philadelphia Union. They the last two teams left in the MLS Cup right now going on. They're playing one of the LA teams. So I had the opportunity to
Philly is everywhere right now.
Was that? Clearly,
so Philly's killing everything right now. Shout out
and they won't let you forget it.
I mean, Saad would tell you during the internship, we made several trips to Philadelphia on the weekends and the evenings. We definitely remember some of those days.
Yeah.
But so I got my first exposure as an adult in terms of organized professional sports with Philadelphia Union. And after that, a couple of years when I moved to Emory in Atlanta, I had the opportunity to meet a couple of colleagues that work with U.S. Soccer. And as a result of that, I kind of created a relationship. And I've been, a physician with the U.S. Soccer Physician Network for about 8 years now. So with that role, I've had the opportunity of traveling with different mostly men's team, U14, 16, 17, 20, and recently with the U23s. I'm excited about the opportunity of being able to travel to the World Cup in Indonesia next year, and God willing, Olympics in 2024. So I think U.S. Soccer is definitely being one of the big ones that I've had the opportunity, building relationships, networking, talking to people, and just being at the right place at the right time, and just being prepared for the right place at the right time.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's crazy. So like that's the connection that you created during your residency at Temple.
So that was actually my fellowship. So I did a fellowship at Crozier Keystone. So that was just a quick introduction. But to be honest with you, Mike, when I moved out here to Atlanta and Emory, it was just having conversations. And the rest kind of blossomed from there.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
So
that's really
the
good.
U.S. Soccer one. I've had the opportunity of working with Atlanta United for a short period of time as well, a few years ago. And I work with the Atlanta Hawks as well too, where cover several games, and that's pretty exciting as well too.
Oh
Having an
man, Hawks
opportunity
games
to
look so lit. Those look
it's
so fun.
it's
Did you get a
definitely
haircut in the
different.
stands? I feel like that's what you got to do when you go to Hawks game. You got to get a haircut in the stands.
Well, I while you're working, it's difficult to do that. But fair enough. Fair enough.
Oh man, I love it, man. That's great, man. That sounds so fun, man. So tell us about Olufade Sports Medicine as well.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of my goal is just to kind of take everything that I've learned in the past um couple of decades and be able
Mm-hmm.
to kind of use it in promoting athletes. When I say athletes, it doesn't have to be a professional athlete. I
Mm-hmm.
think the 70-year-old grandfather playing golf. I think the 50-year-old mom that's playing
That counts.
tennis. I
That
think the
counts.
30-year-old that's weightlifting.
That counts.
The 15, 16-year-old football player that just dislocated the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of the type of injury, I think the whole idea is improving people's function. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole idea is getting people to do what they enjoy and what they love to do.
Absolutely.
I do see my patient and say, you know what, getting old is not cool. And I say, I agree, it's not cool at all. It's like, but what's the other option? I mean,
right.
So
It's a
I
blessing.
think, in order to kind of stay, in order for us to stay going, in order for us to stay active, I
Mm-hmm.
think just encouraging people to continue to move, continue to exercise, continue
Mm-hmm.
to stay fit. Because I honestly believe, I know education is very important, but I
Mm-hmm.
think health is important as well.
Oh, yeah.
I
Absolutely.
think just encouraging people to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I'm really about, encouraging people to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's how you got to do it, man. Plus, I mean, I feel like that kind of goes in hand with your like mental health. You stay healthy, keep your body healthy, keeps your mind right. It's like there's no ill effects of exercising. Like it's all positive. So like the more you can get someone to get out there and like despite whatever injury they have, help them rehabilitate and get back to like doing what they love. That's major, man. So that's big shout out to you for getting more and more people out there and making sure they're doing what they love to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So like did you feel like there was like during the pandemic, I guess, or like when everything was shut down, did you get less patients, more patients, or like what changes did you see amongst your like patient population?
I think there were two extremes. I think one extreme was initially nobody went out. Organized sports was not like acceptable or allowed because of the
Mm-hmm.
fear of contact and the virus. So I think that was
Yeah.
one part where organized sports and everything like that kind of died down a lot. I think the other
Mm-hmm.
side was when people are now home and having this indoor gyms. I actually wrote a couple of blogs that could be seen online about
Mm-hmm.
different tips of working out at home, what to keep in mind in terms of when you're buying weight machines,
Mm-hmm.
overuse injuries and stuff like that. I think we're starting to see a lot more overuse injuries and injuries and accidents because people staying confined to the home or maybe just overworking things or maybe
Right.
not using proper techniques versus if they were
Mm-hmm.
going to the gym, their buddy could show them how to do it. Or even the person that's not worked out in several months or several years, they're going from the couch to trying to get that 5K done. Those
Yeah.
were the injuries that we saw. So I think there were two opposite types of experience that we had.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, man. Yeah, I mean but I mean, shout out to the people just trying, but you can definitely just take your time to get back into it. But as long as you're
100%.
doing it, yeah, got to do it. And it's like, I feel like it's kind of like dieting. Like it doesn't need to be, it shouldn't be something different. It should be part of your habit, your routine every day. If you can make it happen. So
Lifestyle
yeah,
changes.
man. So that's so true, man.
I wanted to ask you, Dr. Olufade, what was your greatest difficulty and how you overcame it on your journey?
Greatest difficulty for me was probably test taking.
Yeah, man.
I
Not
think
alone.
not using excuses, but I think some folks were groomed and brought up to be good test takers.
Oh yeah,
100%.
My kids
Exactly.
for sure will be one.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have some of the skill set. So I think test taking was just something that I was never really strong at. And as a result of that, I had to work twice as hard just to be able to do those well. I think those are probably one of my struggles that I kind of struggle with.
Mm-hmm, No, you overcame it, made it happen.
Yes, you did. How'd you do it?
I think it's just so I joked around earlier about just being there early. So if you got to put in twice the amount of work, so be it. If you have to get there a few hours earlier and stay a few hours later, so be it. If you have to kind of find out what your method of learning, what's your technique to learning is. For me, what I realized, I had to write stuff out, right? So I had to like write it out. For majority of my classmates, they dislike going to class. Like, what are you talking about? But for me, I actually had different several ways of observing that information. So I had to go to class. I was that guy that was sat, maybe not the first row, but the second or third, because I didn't want to get distracted. But at the same time, I felt like I needed that second wave of absorbing that information. So persistence and time.
Yeah, that's great, man. And I totally, you just took me back, a flashback to like realizing that if I went to class, it definitely was easier for me to absorb the information. Like if I actually went and sat there and listened and I read it, oh man, it was like you had another opportunity to understand the concept and really absorb it. Maybe shave off some study time at the end because you had it, you'd heard it and you read it. But at any rate,
oh man, that's so true. That's true.
We're not all great test takers. Learning those skills, like you said, you're preparing your children now, preparing mine. It's like it can be something so foreign to some of us to like, try and figure out how to answer these questions on these standardized tests. But you worked your way around it, and congrats to you on that. You did.
Absolutely made it happen, man. And I want to take this time to apologize for some of the things I did during internship with you in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I feel like Dr. Alfy Olufade is an excellent physician. And, I learned from him, be early, look fresh. That you'll be up 10. You'll be up 10 every time. With that being said, during internship, I did not show up early and I never looked fresh. And, I feel like, we were in Allentown. It's a little bit of a country place. And, we had a certain number of African-American male interns at the same time. And I feel like they kind of got us confused because you were killing it. You were awesome. I was not awesome. And I feel like that kind of held you back. So I'd like to formally apologize.
I think you've been very generous right now.
I'm just saying. No. You were killing it there. Like you were up early, on time, got the patients ready. I mean, you were doing it. And I feel like, I just was not at that level. So
I think my
formal apology to you, sir.
I think we all helped each other out, and I think we all helped each other to get to where we are. Definitely going through our internship year, so it was good times, though.
It was good times. Good times. And we'll get you out of here on this one. This last question. So, what would you tell someone who's struggling in medical school or like in undergrad trying to make the med school? What would you tell them to like help them get through?
I think I would say, trying to figure out what the problem is, really. I think for some folks, it's just feeling accepted in that environment, if that's what it is. Listen to podcasts like this, look into programs like SNMA, Student National Medical Association, which I was a member of, look into NMA, which we just had a convention in Atlanta a few months ago kind of have your community to help support. That's one. I think if it's more from test taking standpoint, like I mentioned earlier, figure out what your weaknesses are, figure out ways to kind of, counter some of those weaknesses and see, how to get better, go to classes, figure out different strategies to take tests or comprehend things, whatever it might be. I think if it's more just having a role model or mentor, just reaching out to, to folks. I mean, I think one of the blessings of being in academic medicine to some extent is I get people that reach out, and I'm excited. I'm always happy to try to help out. So I think regardless of what it might be, I think it's just feeling welcomed. If it's more from the test taking standpoint, if it's more like just looking for somebody that, you know, resembles you, to want to be or emulate being them. And it doesn't have to be like you're of the same race, of the same gender, quite frankly, because to be honest with you, the two folks I mentioned earlier that kind of helped me in the world of PM&R look different from me. But just finding that person that you could, you feel comfortable with, you feel right talking to.
Absolutely. That's great advice, man. Like that's true, man. Sometimes your mentors, they may not look like you, but they will help you. So that's so true, man. But we really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us, man. Thank you so much. And thanks for putting us on game. PM&R out here. I see you, man. I love
Travis,
it, man.
I really appreciate you having me today for sure.
No problem, man. No problem, man. Sir. Shout out to everyone listening. Thank you so much. And till next time, stay low and keep firing.
Is the cheapest medication that exists out there. You don't got to pay for it. You just got to get out there, take the walk, hiking, you know, get on the bike. It's just the cheapest medication that exists out there.